the protest that took place in the ECOSOC chamber. And UN staff members were told they couldn't bring signs in. They stood up in the back. Substantively, is given that Ms. Gallach didn't address the people standing in the back with their backs turned toward her and their fists in the air, when did this process of choosing a cartoon character as the empowerment ambassador begin? Who proposed it? Who made the decision? What consultations were held with staff? This is the protest of Cristina Gallach and Ban Ki-moon's decision to name a cartoon character as their empowerment, gender empowerment ambassador. It's supposed to be in front of ECOSOC, but it started down here. We just asked Special Rapporteur David Kay about Cristina Gallach's evicting inner city press. We couldn't actually get to the second floor, but we're going to go through. We're going through. These are staff. Let's do it. Gotta make sure. I'm sure it's only UN staff protesting because, of course, the public has no say in Ban Ki-moon making a travesty of the supposed world body, world organization. This is a nice protest. Ban Ki-moon is going to go. What people have to understand is that this decision was made by Cristina Gallach of DPI, the genius, the evictor. All right. Oh, let's see if maybe I can't go to the second floor without a mind. Let's go. Here we go. Going up. See what other cartoon character Ban Ki-moon can select. It was a travesty. Hopefully the incoming Secretary General Guterres will take note of how decisions taken without consultation by officials who are incompetent, like Cristina Gallach, result in tearing the UN apart. That's what one might hope. And that throwing out journalists, is also not a good idea.
Okay, warm in case I'm about to talk it over.
Good one. Now let us see. What?
We're just going to do one of my let's go to the third floor.
Let's keep it moving here on the way.
Alright. So, when they go to the photo booth, where's the photo of the protest? The protest is more important than the disgusting event in which Ban Ki-moon has once again put the UN for sale to DC Comics. This is the same Ban Ki-moon, please note, that gave a speech. DC. This is the third floor of the UN, in the ECOSOC chamber. Now this was a mural by Diego Rivera. The UN actually stood for something. What's Ban Ki-moon's legacy? Here's a UN security official. We're going in. We can go in. Sure, we can go in. No signs. Yeah, it's closed meeting. The UN, no signs. You can just silently protest. Oh, so since the protesters can't have any signs.
Actually, that's true. We should just a handful of them.
Yeah, something. Sorry. Something visual.
I think we should not sit. Like, don't sit.
There's Cristina Gallach right in the front.
Folks, please sit down.
Turn our backs. That's it. Turn our backs. Turn our backs. Turning our backs.
This It's nice. Here we go. Oh, don't worry, sir. This is what Ban Ki-moon has done to the United Nations by failure to consult with even his own staff. Oh, you got.
Welcome, everyone, and welcome to those of you who are joining us via webcast from around the world. Thank you for joining us here at the United Nations headquarters for a very special event. We're launching a campaign to promote gender equality with the most iconic female comic superhero of all time, Wonder Woman. We're so pleased to have in the room with us, yes, a big round of applause. UN staff and their family members, young women, young men, the Girl Scouts of New York, and some very other
UN
special
guests.
guests.
Are actually up here with
The
their backs turned to Ban
193
Ki-moon's
members of the United
travesty.
Nations have all agreed that we have to achieve 17 sustainable
UN
development
security.
goals by
They said you couldn't bring in
2030.
signs.
They
Now they're trying
include ending
to push
poverty and
people
hunger,
around.
reducing inequality, improving health, and taking better health of our planet, which is the only one we have, and so many more. Goal number 5 is about achieving gender equality by 2030.
In
We
cartoons
have 14
only,
years
comic
to go,
strip
and we don't
only.
have any time to waste. We have to do this now.
Joker.
Say hi. We need to stand up for the empowerment of women and girls.
That's right,
And
standing
we need
up.
to stand with Wonder Woman, who represents so much of what we're trying to achieve.
What did this say? This is typical Ban Ki-moon. Just proceed as if nothing is going on. Everything is fine. Maybe they can edit the
It
webcast.
is now my pleasure
Maybe they're
to
gonna edit the
introduce the
webcast.
Undersecretary General for Communications and Public
The
Information,
absolute worst.
Ms. Cristina Gallach.
Miss Censorship. Take a look at what David Kay just said about Cristina Gallach and her regime of censorship. I noticed in your catalog of complaints and communications on page 113, you have your letter to Cristina Gallach of the Department of Public Information here about her decision to throw it.
So thanks, Matthew. I'd say a couple of things, and I want to start with the last part of your question, which is looking at how the UN lives up to the standards in international human rights law. So it would be useful for me as a rapporteur and someone who's interested in access to information to know a little bit more about process. So, what is the process by which someone is accredited, or and I know it's not strictly speaking accreditation, but what is the process for accreditation and for the taking away of accreditation? And I think that's something I'd like to explore more with her and with DPI.
In this room before the Wonder Woman situation, unrelated to it, or maybe related, David Kay, the Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression, who in his report has included a letter from Cristina Gallach responding to his inquiry about her decision to throw a media out for being in the room, her letter says that the press trespassed in this room. So I wanted to know what he raised concerns about due process. Given that you've worked in that system, what do you learn from the inquiry from David Kay and Michelle Forst asking about it, and the comments made today about the UN not
I mean, I think
living up to
it's
its
about
own principles?
you, and I think your case has been
Well,
adjudicated.
it's a UN report that came out today.
Yes.
Initiatives among
The
many
decision
over the
maker.
course of the next year will be leveraging the power and appeal of comic books to launch this effort. DC is developing a Wonder Woman comic book that tells
There
the
was a
story
security
of
official
empowerment,
let inner
peace,
city press be
justice,
thrown
and
into the
equality.
street
In
for
2017,
corruption.
for the first time in our history, this comic book will be
Still
available around the world in multiple
pan
languages
this.
simultaneously. We're also making the iconic Wonder Woman character available to UN agencies. They'll be able to leverage the commanding visual image of this beloved superhero and all she stands for into outstanding
Of course, the UN will be
programs
advertising
that
for a
reach where they
for-profit
live,
company, but
play, and learn.
who's counting? Ban Ki-moon
The
gives
UN
$100,000
agencies are doing
speeches
spectacular work on the ground
and doesn't
with
release
girls
them.
around the globe.
Corruption.
They can now add Wonder
A new
Woman
low
to their
for the UN.
arsenal in the fight for gender equality.
Gallach must go.
Thank the United Nations for
Why'd you all walk out before the...
Because Cristina Gallach has got to go. They let her throw the press in the street, did nothing. The journalists sucked up wildly. In fact, they used her to try to not be covered in terms of Ban Ki-moon's corruption. This is how it ends. Ban Ki-moon will try to run home and run for president. Give me a break. Give me a break. He couldn't even deal with a union in his own organization. What a fraud. What a fraud. Yep. Here we go. Woo. Yeah. Good one. Let's go down to the noon briefing. See what Stefan Dujarric is serving up. Kind of. Yes. Dujarric is serving up. All right. Noon briefing. Let's hear what the explanations are. What a fraud. Okay, we're going to actually finish this up in the small space to which Cristina Gallach has thrown out the investigative press. Let's do this thing. Ready? Any questions? Bring it on. We'll do it this way only because we could then answer questions. So what was the protest about? The protest was about Ban Ki-moon, rather than finding an actual female hero, real-life person, of which there are many, and many of them were working not just in the UN, working all over the city of New York, did another corporate partnership with DC Comics that's going to make money. There's also the matter of the swimsuit. It's a totally pro-American thing, but it just showed a total lack of even consultation with his own staff. And the way that they blathered on as if there wasn't a protest. I mean, the UN, at a minimum, this is what it asks member states to do when they have some opposition, is to engage with it in a dialogue. She just blathered on, just behind security, as if everything was fine. This is the same person who, minutes before the protest, in the briefing room, was criticized implicitly by the UN's own Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Information for having no due process, for throwing the press out without even speaking to it, just to retaliate. She shows up in the OIOS audit of the NLAB, same thing, as doing no due diligence when a Macau-based businessman wanted to buy an event. So she's got to go. She's got to go. Ban Ki-moon didn't even have the courage to show up at this event. No, this is important. We hadn't put this in an article yet, but we'll do it now. It's obvious. It's actually no secret at all. It said that Ban Ki-moon was committed to gender parity. Well, let's talk about it. He switched from a female deputy, Asha Rose Majuro, to a male deputy now, Mr. Edmund Millay. He switched from a female chief of staff, Susanna Malcora, to a male, his deputy now is John Eliason. The chief of staff switched from a female deputy, Susanna Malcora, to a male deputy, Mr. Millay. So how committed is he? It's a joke. It's a travesty. And now we're going to see in just a few short moments what Secretary General Ban Ki-moon's spokesman, Stefan Dujarric, has to say about all this.
Given that Ms. Gallach didn't address the people standing in the back with their backs turned toward her and their fists in the air, when did this process of choosing a cartoon character as the empowerment ambassador begin? Who proposed it? Who made the decision? What consultations were held with staff,
I think,
resulting in a protest of the event?
Ms. Gallach, I think, addressed. Let me finish. Well, you were welcome to come in.
No, you said it was deep background.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. I think Ms. Gallach addressed some of the concerns that people had in her speech. I would encourage people to listen to what she said. I don't think I could say with any more passion. I think it is clear. First of all, the consultations on this were had with UN Women and UNICEF, who were involved in this discussion. And I think it bears reminding that the UN has a lot of very strong, real-life women who are goodwill ambassadors, from Angelina Jolie to Marta, the Brazilian soccer player, to a number of to Jane Goodall. We could go on. There's a list. All of them bring something to the table. All of them appeal to different audiences. I think no one is saying that this fictional character is to appeal to everyone and is to represent every woman or every man. It is to appeal to a certain audience, and I think the messages that she brings are very important to that audience. It's the character of Wonder Woman is just one woman, and I think we are very happy and welcome the fact that others may have a different opinion. Staff were allowed to protest. I think, as we say in any country, I think we support peaceful protest. Staff were able to protest, whether in the lobby or whether in the event. But I would encourage people to go back on the webcast, because it is on the webcast, and actually listen to what was said, listen to the messages that were detailed, because I think they were very powerful. And they were very strong.
She said, thank you very much for UN staff for supporting this when there were dozens of people standing with their backs turned. So I wanted to ask you, was she, or I guess if she's not here, were you surprised by this protest? And if you met with UN Women and UNICEF, what mechanism was in place to get a sense from people actually working and doing the day-to-day work of the UN?
Well, I think, in my mind, I think UN Women is the UN entity that deals with gender issues. So we have also, since we were made aware of other views in the buildings expressed by staff, Ms. Gallach has met with gender focal points and other people to explain. And I think people are allowed to have different